You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If Naruto Meets Chaotic. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of pyrohelixdrago on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Valley of the End. Naruto. Sasuke. The two boys said, holding their signature attacks in their hands, both glaring at the other, one of anger, the other longing. Naruto, despite the fox chakra coursing through him, didn't want to hurt Sasuke. He saw his teammate as a brother. He could never imagine hurting this one person who never looked at him like everyone else did. In that moment, Naruto's focus wavered and the energy sphere created by his and Sasuke's attacks clashing became unstable, even more unstable than it should have been, and soon, everything went dark for Naruto. Sarcasm. A youngling? Ariak thought, as this chaotic player seemed on the young side given how old Kit seemed to be. He spotted some of the wounds he had. What was he fighting? He thought, as his wounds smelt like a mixture of fire and electrical burns. Be glad you aren't bigger, he thought as he flew to a friend of his to help this child. Few minutes later. Ursus did not recognize the wounds. To be more accurate, he didn't recognize the wounds to match any creature in this forest could cause. Will the youngling make it? Ariak asked, as while sarcasm was a harsh environment, one's life shouldn't be snuffed out so young. Ursus nodded, as while a warrior he was a scavenger like Ariak. It's why they got along so well and why they were allies. They were like-minded and didn't instigate attacks with the other creatures. I couldn't find his scanner, Ariak said to him. Ursus froze as Kid explained to them what a creature like him was. He was known as a human playing a game called Chaotic. Without their scanners they were stuck in this hole. Next day. Am I dead? Naruto asked himself, trying to get up, but winced as his left arm was in a self-made sling. Okay, where am I? He thought, seeing forest, but not trees he recognized. I am surprised you're awake, Ursus said to Naruto, seeing him look at him with both confusion and curiosity. Odd, he thought to himself, as this human seemed different somehow than Kit and others that had come here before. Okay, talking bear, not my weirdest day, Naruto said to himself. Can you tell me where I am? He asked him curiously. Sarcasm. Ursus said to him. And that is, where? Naruto asked him, never hearing that name. HAREM. Ursus said, as Kit was nice enough to educate him and Ariak on some things outside of the chasm, as Kit ended up here by mistake if one could believe. It was why he was almost always climbing. Sarcasm was a hidden location, one that could be within another, so he had no idea where the chasm was or how to escape it fully and completely. He even gave Ursus and Ariak his hand-made maps and best guesses where the chasm could be, as a natural enemy of his Chromax apparently had a non-feral relative past these rocky walls, so it was guessed by Kid it was somewhere near the overworld in one of its vast territories. Okay, Naruto said, never hearing that name before. He doesn't know that name, Ursus thought before realizing he had the same dumbfounded looks he and Ariak had when Kit taught them these things. You're not from Chaotic, are you? He asked, needing confirmation to his question, which he got in the form of another question. What's Chaotic? Naruto asked him, never hearing that name before. Few days later. You found a human, and he's never heard of Chaotic? Kit asked, finding that impossible to believe. Where is Ariak? He asked, as the squirrel-like creature was always here when he visited. The other human can walk on trees. The rodent took a liking to him, Ursus said, as while not a people person, Naruto reminded him much of himself and Ariak. He was helpful even while injured. Kit was now curious and went to look for Ariak, looking both up and around as the creature could be traveling by air, tree, or ground, and soon spotted him talking to a child who was standing on a tree horizontally. Interesting, he thought, as this was a new development. 1 hour later. Interesting. Kit said as he and Naruto were having a little game of 20 questions. From what Naruto had told him, he came from a world similar to Japan given he knew kanji, but was also filled with people of a similar nature to creatures and their attacks. He then learned Naruto coming here was an accident resulting from a battle, which was where he got his already healing wounds. He informed Naruto of creatures and HAREM, giving him the basics and some history. Naruto was shocked he was in another world and saddened that there was no way back. Kit was in a pinch as leaving Naruto here was not ideal. As a codemasters, he had guidelines to follow, and he couldn't help another player at least through conventional means, but given Naruto wasn't a player there was a loophole. If you come with me I can take you to chaotic, if your DNA matches closely to a human's I can teleport you with me. He said as forcing teleportation was usually done with criminal players. Naruto looked to Ariak and Ursus seeing them nod as they trusted Kit. Naruto nodded as well and they soon left. Chaotic. Kit took Naruto to the Krellin Drome and went to the center and then donned his robes calling the other codemasters, for a meeting. 20 minutes later. The meeting went better than expected. Hotek was his normal critical self but he got what he wanted. He was having commissions done for Naruto, a decent-sized house where he could port to via a special code in the scanner he was having commissioned for him, a starter deck, and given that he had no knowledge of the tribes, he was given a random, basic, scan of each plus battle gear and music. He threw in Ursus and Ariak as well, but couldn't throw in a Prexarchasm scan as the other codemasters saw that as too much of an advantage over other players. Kid explained the situation to Naruto, telling him while not home chaotic would be a place where he was always welcomed. He had to teach Naruto how to read and write, as while they had players from around the world they did often offer them ways to learn the languages of the species of HAREM. 1 month later. Kit was impressed by how fast Naruto learned, but given how little he had in his life he guessed the lessons were a welcome distraction. He helped Naruto pick out his player name as well and was surprised he didn't pick a tribe color. He just chose a black casing, making his scanner one of a kind, and Naruto's username was a bit simple given if anyone knew how to translate his name, but he chose Storm Maelstrom. Kit was a bit sad that when he gave Naruto a tutorial on how to use his scanner for trades, porting, and the other features, Naruto would be going alone, while a codemaster. He wished he could have taken the on his first actual port. He gave Naruto a warning though, be careful what creatures might see your abilities. It's one thing if they think a human can do these things, but if they think all humans can do what you do, it puts others at risk, he said, as this was his duty and it wasn't just about Naruto but everyone. He couldn't stop Naruto from revealing his abilities, but he had to warn him all the same. Naruto nodded understanding, as while human they didn't have access to chakra. You have my info if you ever wish to talk. Kit said, as that was at least optional to codemasters as they could pick and choose who to call or who could call them. Naruto watched Krellin leave and wondered to himself where he would even go, but more importantly, why would he go? 1 year later. Kit was a bit saddened as Naruto had yet to leave chaotic. He understood well, as while the game was good, not having a life to return to was a bit worse. Naruto had yet to experience the fun chaotic could bring, so he decided to force Naruto's hand. Having seen how stubborn he was, he looked through the newest arrivals to chaotic and settled on one he had an eye on. Next day. Storm Maelstrom, you have an upcoming match in the Krellin Drome, in 1 hour, the robot said to Naruto. Naruto raised a brow. He hadn't played, so he wondered why now of all times he was getting a match with Tom. I can't believe you're fighting the mysterious black scanner, Kaz said, spazzing out slightly. Tom raised a brow at that statement. No one has seen him leave, ever. People think he's one of those guys who threw his scanner away and is now stuck here, Kaz said, sending Tom a look. Anyway, no one knows what tribe he's affiliated with, and when people try to pull up his info it's all blank, he said to him. Tom was curious as that didn't sound right. Anyone could pull up anyone's records in chaotic, online, and here, I thought you had to win matches to get here, he asked as people won matches online and earned their way to chaotic. No one knows Tom, he's a total mystery, Kaz said, wondering how their battle would go. 1 hour later. Tom saw the mystery man was already waiting for him. This was a one-on-one match, and he saw him load his scanner. I wonder what kind of deck he uses, he thought to himself as it kinda threw him off a bit. He loaded Maxer with Song of Resurgence and an Aqua Shield. Naruto was having a hard time as this was his first battle. Each team has a specialty. Overworlders have great teamwork and can boost their energy by a certain amount. Underworlders are a bit risky. Some abilities they have can often be like rolling the dice or be like a double-edged sword as they can sacrifice each other to make themselves stronger. Danians work best in teams to increase their strength through hive ability, and Mypedians are naturals of stealth, while they can also possess a unique ability along with invisibility. Kit said to him in one of their many strategy lessons. Okay, so Overworlders, Danians, and Underworlders are out, so Mypedian might be the way to go. Naruto thought getting his only Mypedian scan and then gave it a lickalizer as Mypedians didn't have water attacks usually, so it'd be a nice surprise. And finally SWCH riff. Lock your decks, the AI said to them as they did and saw each other's opposing creature. Maxer. Naruto thought, having heard of the overworld leader. Kalmo. Tom thought, never hearing of that particular creature, but saw its stats and thought he had an edge. Storm Maelstrom, as this is your first battle in the Krellendrome, you will be the attacker, the AI said to them. Naruto only had the basic locations. She hoped for someplace he'd have an advantage. They watched as Naruto's spinner slowed, landing on a location. Mount Pillar, the AI said before Naruto and Tom chose their creatures. Mount Pillar. This is disorienting. Naruto thought to himself, or rather as Kalmo, he felt the creature's intuition and senses kicking into overdrive, but not for the reasons he thought. He's been here, he thought in realization, getting flashes and feelings that he knew this place. You need to be careful. Creature scans have both instincts and memories that are ties to locations or opponents. It's hard for a player to ignore them. Kid explained to him as it was hard to explain the mental side of a creature when someone had yet to experience it for themselves. Okay Kalmo, let's see where you take me. Naruto thought, letting him do the driving. 10 minutes later. An elevator. Kalmo thought to himself, opening a door. It seemed pretty secure and bottomless, a plan formulating in his mind. He began looking for Tom, or rather Maxer. He soon found him as it was kinda hard not to spot Maxer's footprints. With Maxer. Really need to upgrade my arsenal for Mypedians. Maxer said as he needed more ways to combat that invisibility. Magician Steel. Kalmo said too loudly. Maxer glowed. Ash felt pulled in two, seeing his magician taken right from him, going into Kalmo, who was no visible. Thanks for the magician Maxer, later. Kalmo said, making a dash. Get back here. Maxer said, chasing after him. With Kaz. Kalmo is a Mypedian, why isn't he going invisible? Kaz asked himself. With Kalmo. Come on you idiot, get in range. Kalmo thought, needing Maxer to be in a specific range of himself. Where you going Kalmo? Too scared to fight? Maxer yelled, firing a pebble storm at him. Actually yeah. Kalmo thought, as his strengths didn't rely on pure combat, it relied on stealth, cunning, and instinct. Naruto was familiar with these instincts given he was a ninja, and the fact Maxer was made for battle limited his options. He made it back to the he was at earlier. Later Greeny, he said, turning invisible and jumped upward to the cables. Acid Washington, he said, firing at the cables inside the as they began to burn and melt. Thanks for the magician earlier Maxer, now SWCH riff, he said as he and Maxer glowed. Maxer was shocked to see he and Kalmo SWCH places. He hung to the cable trying not to fall down, but soon saw that cable was breaking from Kalmo's acid wash and soon Maxer fell down. Later. Kalmo said before seeing Maxer burst into code. Chaotic. The winner is Storm Maelstrom, the AI said to them. That was fun. Kalmo said as he turned back into Naruto. That was pretty cool, you didn't even fire an attack at me. Tom said, finding that impressive. I wouldn't have survived an all-out fight, so I had to plan to take out Maxer another way. Bottomless seemed best with the type of music I had. Naruto said as they left the arena. So your tribe is Mypedians? Tom asked him curiously. I'm a bit of a mixed bag. Naruto said to him as they went to the port court. Cool, want to hang with me and my friend Kaz? Tom asked him as he seemed pretty chill and wasn't much of a glory hog rubbing his victory in his face. Sure. Naruto said to him seeing the redhead in the distance. 1 hour later. So Naruto got any underworld scans? Kaz asked as Naruto said he used a mixed deck. Just one spider. Naruto said to him, seeing his surprise. Man, spider is a hard scan to get, mind if I see him? Kaz asked curiously as Naruto showed him spider's scan. His stats don't seem too impressive. Tom said to them as they seemed about average. Looks can be deceiving, Tom. Spider is a scout for the underworld, he's always crawling around everywhere, and while his stats are average, he's a great card for setting up traps. Kaz said as it was hard to get a scan of Spider given how elusive he was, but he was also known for sneak attacks. It was like fighting a Mypedian even though he couldn't turn invisible. So do you favor skill then? Tom asked as he noticed when he was calmo, Naruto chose stealth and fought with intellect. I do have some powerhouses. Naruto said, changing to his overworld scan. He decided to keep Ursus and Ariak a secret for now at least. Look, not a bad scan, seen him used a few times. Kaz said as Staluk was a very temperamental overworlder, he didn't like being scanned at all. And this is my Danyan creature. Naruto said to them, showing off his last creature. Kebna. Kaz said in shock, most people find it hard to get him, he's a maverick and a full-on lunatic, he said having heard stories from Danyan players. Sounds kinda cool. Tom said wondering if he should get a scan of him. You need more scans if you're gonna cut it at chaotic. Kaz said to him, I have to go to the overworld to collect some materials, then I have to meet someone who trades information for what I collect, mind lending me a hand? He asked him curiously. Naruto was curious as to what he meant by someone who trades for information. Kaz sent him his extra scan for the Forest of Life. 1 hour later. The informant eats this? Naruto thought in disgust as they cleaned out Draktal's old scales. He had seen the bird in plenty of chaotic matches and knew he had his uses, but was a total coward. Hey, thanks for the assist, the more I bring the more information he usually gives up. Kaz said to him. No problem. Naruto said, taking a moment to take in the view. The Forest of Life reminded him of home with how rich it was with nature and life. If I come back here, I should make some storage seals, he thought as the smell of these things was rancid. Naruto surprised himself as he was already thinking of his next visit, as so far he had been left alone with his thoughts. He had no one here in this world, and it never occurred to him he could make new friends and make the best out of his new life. Dracetal incoming. Kaz said as it was time to port out. Meet me in Underworld City, he said to him as he ported. Naruto decided to get a scan of Dracetal. He wanted a scan on his first port out of Chaotic. He saw the winged beast approach and got a good scan before jumping off the nest and ported. Later in Underworld City. Oh, Dracetal scales. Hearing said, munching on them. Naruto looked ready to hurl seeing the scales being ingested. Okay, listen, Kopond is trying to work on enhancing his music, he's had varying results. Hearing said to him. Kaz deflated but didn't look put out. Well, at least this trip may be worth something, he said to himself. Trying to enhance music? Naruto asked curiously. Kopond is a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to music. He never liked how unpredictable some were. You've seen a few musics go bad in a battle, right? Kaz asked, getting a nod. Well, Kopond is trying to create perfect versions of the music, make them last longer or be more effective, he said to him, remembering Tom's fortissimo and his first battle, how he began shrinking in less than a minute. Naruto had to admit that sounded interesting. How do you know if one music is better than the other? He asked them. It's in the writing and power of a musician creating the music. Hearing said to him, stuffed from all the scales. Like sealing? Naruto thought, having once asked the pervy sage about seals when he sealed Itachi's black flames. Later at the lava pond. Not bad. Naruto thought to himself, taking a scan of this place. Always watch the lava. Hearing said to him before running off. Is he talking about Magmon? Naruto asked curiously, having seen the creature in battles. Yeah, Magmon, Changes when he is in the lava pond for extended periods of time. Kaz said as it was near impossible to find Magmon when he was like that. Changes how? Naruto asked, finding that odd. It's hard to explain, but he somehow absorbs lava into his body and get larger, but he goes deeper into the lava pond and it's way too hot for even an underworlder to go in there, but when he comes out he stays in the form for a while. He is tasked with protecting this place as it makes fire attacks stronger and is a way into the underworld. Another reason is he protects Koppand. Kaz said to him as Magmon was not an easy scan to acquire in a place like this, especially when he changed. Naruto had to remember that as he knew locations had effects on creatures or even one creature in particular, but he never knew it went to that degree. Naruto and Kaz made it to a remote part of the lava pond. It was a cave nearby a lake of lava. They stealthily entered it and were surprised how large it was in the cave. It was honestly a fortress with how well it is carved, but given it was the home of a magician it made more sense. You ever been here? Naruto asked him curiously. Nope. Kaz said as Naruto gave him a dry look. Listen, no one really goes to see magicians, they have all their stuff under lock and key, he said, remembering how Tom told him how his meeting with Najurin went. The two looked around for either a vault or a lab, wondering where Koppand would keep his mujiks. Unknown to them, they were being watched by Koppand himself. Interesting. Koppand thought, holding a mujik in his hand. He aimed it at Kaz and it remained the same, but aiming it at Naruto caused it to shine a bit brighter. 5 minutes later. Kaz, where are you? Listen, I think we should leave, this place is starting to give me the creeps. Naruto said as his instincts were telling him he was being watched, but no matter where he looked he couldn't spot anything. Naruto didn't hear from Kaz and began looking around. Sit down, human. Koppand said, making his presence known, holding Kaz in one hand and his scanner in the other. I wish to speak, he said to him. Fine, let Kaz go and I'm all yours. Naruto said to him, placing his scanner down. Koppand had seen his fair share of humans, having blasted at enough of them, but this was the first time he had seen such a look in one of their eyes. Leave, he said to Kaz, giving him his scanner. Go, Kaz. Naruto said, seeing how nervous he was but saw his lack of longing to leave him. I'll be fine, go, he said as the boy then left. Koppand was impressed the human had stayed. You are affecting my mujik, he said, showing him a mujik which glowed the closer it got. He looked at the scanner and saw it was black. He was sure each player had a colored one to represent the 4 tribes, but not him. Sorry. Naruto said in confusion. Don't be a fool, I want to know how this is possible. You are strengthening the mujik, and I want to know how. Koppand said as he wanted this to be a permanent effect. Is it my chakra? Naruto thought, wondering if his chakra was somehow affecting the mujik. You realized something, what? Koppand said as he kept eye contact and saw Naruto's eyes widen in realization. Naruto remembered what Kit said and kept his mouth shut. I don't know, he said, seeing Koppand glare at him. I'll cut you a deal, you let me scan you and your mujiks and I'll come here to let you work on your mujiks, he said to him. What kind of deal is that? I'd already work on my mujiks. Koppand said as that was a deal only an idiot would accept. Because you never experimented on them while I'm around, who knows, maybe they'll keep glowing. Naruto said, picking up his mujik which shined even brighter. Koppand retracted his earlier statement. It was a smarter deal on the human's part. He'd lose nothing but a few short minutes, and with him here coming voluntarily he may find out what he was hiding that made the mujik stronger. Fine, I shall take you to where I keep my mujiks, the ones I have deemed either perfect or successes, he said, taking Naruto to a remote part of the cave and pressed into a wall which soon opened. Didn't even notice that. Naruto thought as this place and Koppand were impressive, everything was well hidden, even the man. Koppand revealed his stores. You have other mujiks? Naruto asked, seeing mostly red and white, but a few blue, orange, and brown mujiks. Only a hack Muge studies one tribe of mujik. Now before that I shall make myself stronger. Koppand said to him as he used 3 mujiks on himself. Make sure when you use me to make sure your opponents know to never mess with this magician, he said, as he wanted children to fear him more. While not a warrior like his leader, he was nonetheless still powerful. Naruto took a scan as creatures powered by mujiks were very desired. he saw all of his stats aside from wisdom were nearly doubled and he still had his 3 magicians. How did you keep your magicians? He asked curiously. This is my home, I keep spares stored up in the event I use all 3. Coupon said as he made sure to keep them well stored with magicians only he knew where to find. Naruto soon began scanning some mujiks and then said his farewells. Coupon chuckled at the child's bravery. Not many had the guts to barter with him and do it successfully. He went to his chambers and began drawing a picture of Naruto and sent it to Chire along with a message. Underworld City next day. Coupon. Chire thought as he was one of his most trusted allies in his army, unlike Van Blut, he read his message and found it both slightly interesting and curious. A human affecting a mujik, interesting, he thought as Coupon informed him he'd investigate the human as often as he came and if this effect could be harnessed it'd make mujik stronger and superior for his side at least. Coupon asked for the boy's safety as his life held benefits to his research, of that Chire believed as Coupon would do anything to increase the potency and learn more secrets to mujik. Chire was also curious to how a human was making a mujik stronger as there had been dozens he had seen, but so far none of them affected mujik or he would have heard of it by now. He wondered what made this human special. With Naruto in chaotic. Well, at least you got your scans. Tom said to Naruto as he got Draktyl and Coupon along with a lot of mujiks mostly underworld. You know, if you get chorus of the Kataka you can use different mujiks from different tribes, he said to him. Naruto thought about that. Seems risky to waste a mujik to just use another mujik, he said as he didn't want to waste a slot, but given he used a mixed deck it wasn't a bad idea if he wanted to surprise his enemy. So you got any plans to get any more scans? Tom asked curiously. I think I might try my luck with Mount Pillar. After our fight and Kalmo's memories I think I know the layout well enough. Naruto said as Kalmo had some interesting memories and given Naruto was no slouch with stealth, he felt he had similar chances. Be careful if one member of the hive spots you, they all know, a female voice said to him. Naruto, this is Sarah, met her my first day in chaotic. Tom said to him introducing the two. Tom mentioned you got a Kebna scan, want to make a trade for it? Sarah asked, not having the scan herself. Sorry, bit of a collector. Naruto said to her, liking to have variety, but I do have multiple scans of mujik, he said, having taken multiple scans of the mujik from Coupon's vault as having one mujik was good, but multiple scans of them was just as good and he would trade those. Sure, I have a few extra Danian scans myself. Sarah said as they went to go trade. Naruto made an offer for her Wama and Macrobon, and he'd give her Discord of Disarming, Ember Flourish, and Song of True Sight. What's a Danian controller? Naruto asked, never hearing about that, and saw it in Macrobon title. They are a special class of Danian, they can infect other creatures turning them into Danians. Sarah said to him. So they're what, females, parasites? Naruto asked curiously. Sarah chuckled at that question, but honestly didn't know herself. Not really, but they do have the same ability as the queen, which is why they're so special, she said to him. There is one controller I want to get, but he's a bit tricky, he's never been scanned before, she said to him. Oh yeah, who? Naruto asked her, wondering who she meant. Skartalas, he's basically a legend in the hive, he's a great leader, but he's terrifying, and he's rumored to work with Van Blut. Sarah said to him. Naruto had heard of Van Blut and seen that card used in a match or two. The man reminded him of Orochimaru with that hungry look for power in his eyes, even when used by a player. They're rumored to be having a meeting, but if I went alone I'd be spotted. Sarah said to him. Alone and you'd be spotted? Naruto asked, as usually going alone meant you wouldn't get spotted. Yeah, how tall are you? Sarah asked him, seeing him raise a brow. Few hours later at Lava Bridge. I could have pulled off a henge for this CRP, this is dumb. Naruto said as they were wearing black underworlder armor belonging to knights in Van Blut's employ, going to the meeting place. Where the hell did you get this? He asked Sarah. The underworld once had a guard wander off into the hive. Chire didn't really care as the guy was Van Blut's soldier. Sarah said as Danians kept anything that may be useful to the hive, but Wama snagged this for her as no one used it. I can probably cast a henge when she gets on my shoulders. Naruto thought to himself as that was the reason Sarah couldn't do this alone. A guard belonging to the underworld was tall, even their combined height they barely met the standard. Naruto was curious to this meeting as Van Blut often wanted to conquer the underworld and have it under his reign. He didn't see why such a greedy idiot would reach outside for help, especially with Danians as they were allies of the overworld. They made it to Van Blut's entourage and thankfully they blended in. They were waiting for Skartalas. So what do you think they are meeting about? Naruto asked Sarah. No idea. Sarah said as it was up in the air what Van Blut could want and she didn't think Skartalas would want anything. They both sat in silence as Skartalas soon arrived alone. That's never a good sign. Naruto thought to himself wondering why Van Blut had troops and Skartalas didn't. Greetings Van Blut. Skartalas said politely. Greetings my old enemy. Van Blut said before chuckling, do you have the scroll? He asked him. Yes, have the arrangement been made? Skartalas asked curiously. Yes, but it will take some time. I had to make some dealings with Kamangareth, and Spider is still unfamiliar with the territory. It will be some time before what you asked can be done. Van Blut said to him shivering at the mere mention of Kamangareth as that woman was a nightmare, even by underworld standards. Skartalas nodded and took out a scroll. It is an old relic. The scroll is just the same, the Danians barely have any records of its existence, it will be hard to find. Skartalas said as what Van Blut wanted was simple compared to his request. No matter, with this I can find it. Van Blut said looking at the slightly damaged scroll. Naruto didn't like this seemed like the wrong kinda exchange. From what he could piece together Van Blut was searching for something and Skartalas had Van Blut send out Spider. It sounded like he got information from Kamangareth and knowing what it was would be the key to figuring that out. They moved so they were at the front line. Good thing I still have my smoke bombs. Naruto thought to himself having much of his old ninja tools should figure out a way to make more, he thought as his supply was finite. You scan Van Blut, I'll go for Skartalas. Sarah said to him as she had Naruto move closer. Van Blut noticed one of his men out of position. You there, why are you not in position? He said demandingly. Sarah, I need you to tell this idiot exactly what I say and make your voice as deep as possible. Naruto said walking closer to the two as he whispered something to Sarah. I saw the lava moving erratically Lord Van Blut, it could be Magmon, I did not wish for your meeting to be reported to Chire. Sarah said hoping to fool him. Van Blut looked at the lathe critically not trusting it. It seems we will have to cut our reunion short Skartalas, I do not want our meeting to be reported by some imbecile, he said to him before smoke suddenly appeared around them. Naruto got a scan of Van Blut while Sarah got a scan of Skartalas, double or nothing, he thought feeling Sarah poured away. He dropped another smoke bomb and soon found Skartalas running away. Need to be sure I'm not seen, he thought running past the smoke and saw the direction in which Skartalas was running. I can run back to Chaotic and cut him off, he thought hating the one type of scan rule on the scanners till they were uploaded. Van Blut never liked smoke, he did in quick take off and saw a bluish-white light appear, but not who was in it, a chaotic player, he thought in annoyance as he had a few working for him as informants or spies, at least they have no idea what Skartalas and I have planned. He thought as he made sure every dealing with him was under the wire and that even in their meetings any evidence of what they discussed or traded was well hidden or destroyed. Port Court. You got both of them. Sarah said in surprise as Naruto told her of his scan of Van Blut and came back then went to where he cut off Skartalas. She made a mental note of that route in case he used it again in the future. Yeah, took a chance and got both of them. Naruto said to her, at least with the scans and the trades I have a decent number for my team, he thought to himself as he had multiple scans for most of the tribes except the Mypedians, but I am still lacking in battle gear and locations, he thought as he did scan someone walking with Kaz and Sarah in the underworld and overworld. Few hours later. Naruto was in his cabin and enjoying so much deserved rest, he woke up hearing his scanner ring and answered it. I see you've been active lately. Kit said unable to hide his smirk. Yeah, I got interested in some things that reminded me of home. Naruto said as life in Harem is more interesting than he thought, it honestly brought a sense of normalcy to him in a way. Every player does it for a different reason. Naruto, some seek adventure, some wish to experience the lives of their creatures, some do it to further their experience in the game. There are plenty of reasons. Kit said to him simply as it was the truth. Naruto had to admit that was probably the best answer to why anyone came and stayed at Chaotic. I see you made friends with Major Tom, Kid Chire, and Chowdy Queen. Kit said, having seen Naruto make new friends in the past few days. Yeah, thanks for setting me up. Naruto said as he knew Kit set up the match in his drome for whatever reason. You had been here a year and not one match, Kit said to him flatly. I felt you should experience a match and try and make friends, so I gave you a necessary push, he said to him. Also I see you haven't used Ursus or Ariak, mainly the starter creatures you were given, he said to him, curious to that. Yeah, I miss those guys. If I ever want to see them again, I gotta beat you. Naruto said as Krillin all but promised him that location scan. Yep. Kit said as there was no other way, either Naruto defeated him or he'd never get to Prexer Chasm again. You should use Ursus and Ariak, you've seen how they live and how they move. If anyone could use them better than even me, it'd be you, he said, truly meaning that, as Ursus and Ariak did often ask about Naruto. Naruto pulled up their scans, looking at them before nodding to Kit. I'll see you in the drome, Codemaster Krillin, he said as Kit nodded back at him before hanging up. Port Court. Unexpected, huh? Naruto asked curiously as Tom and Sarah were telling them about Peyton. Yeah, he does things someone wouldn't expect. Tom said, telling Naruto about his recent battle with Peyton. Sounds interesting. Do you think he's up for a pickup match? Naruto asked them curiously, thinking it'd be fun to battle someone who was unexpected to other players. Here he comes now. Sarah said to him as Peyton was on his way. Peyton sat at the table and saw Naruto. Hey, you're the black scanner, right? He asked as Naruto nodded. Storm Maelstrom, right? Want to have a match? He asked him. Well, that saves me some time. Naruto thought to himself. Sure, he said as they both left. Beta Drome. Naruto and Peyton were having a simple 3-on-3 match. Last time I played as a Mypedian, I at least know how they fight. Naruto thought to himself, adding 2 songs of True Sight along with native musics to his creatures. As he only had one spectral viewer, he chose Van Blut, Skartalas, and Staluk. I'll give Van Blut a Torweg to give him air attacks and more speed. Skartalas won't have hive ability, so I'll give him some options with a Lickalizer, and I'll give Staluk an Aqua Shield for added energy, he thought, locking his deck. Sarah said he uses a mixed deck. Peyton thought to himself, wondering how he'd mix them. I'll go with Biondu, Seattle, and finally Malvadine, he thought, and chose his battle gear and music at random. Players, lock your decks, the AI said to them as they did as told. For being challenged, Storm Maelstrom will be the attacking player, it said before Naruto spun his deck as the location became the Forest of Life. Nice scans, my man. Peyton said to him, looking at Van Blut and Skartalas mainly. Van Blut attacks Seattle. Naruto said, touching the icon. He looked himself over when he became Van Blut. He even feels evil, he thought to himself. Let's get chaotic, bro. Seattle said to him as they were transported. Forest of Life. Being a flyer is a disadvantage here. Van Blut thought to himself as Mypedians would have a much larger field of play as they could use tree cover on top of being invisible, while him being in the air was easy to spot. Need to focus on Seattle, he thought to himself. Naruto paused as his mind flashed with images of Seattle, but they were not alone. He was with Mudinu, Van Blut's memories. He thought to himself as he heard about this. Players could access creature memories, need a place to think, he thought to himself, wondering what was on Van Blut's mind. He flew to Dractyl's nest and focused. You want access to ancient music? Mudinu asked Van Blut. Yes, the Mypedians are known for their history with collecting musics of varying types. I am not sure of which one yet, but I am to be told the name soon, and soon Mudinu, Maxer, and Chire will be out of our hair. Van Blut said while thinking of how to backstab the prince later on. He was after music. Naruto thought to himself, I need to dig deeper, think of Chire, he thought as he had heard of how the two loathed each other. Naruto did not expect to get an immediate reaction. The time draws near, these chaotic players are a blessing in disguise. Van Blut said to Krek and Scythia, they are cheaper too, if we can use one of them to get me information on Chire, I can decide the battle on my terms, he said laughing maniacally. Naruto was silent as Van Blut was using a chaotic player or maybe even players to skim information on Chire. From his thoughts alone Naruto was concerned. Nice try hiding in the bird's nest pal, but get ready to get blown away, wind slash. Seato said making his presence known. Van Blut so caught up in his own head was sent back. I doubt he'll let me think on my own, he thought to himself, not willing to go down doing nothing. He equipped his torweg and took it off his back. Let's see how much heat you can handle, he said as he set the nest ablaze and then flew upward through the nest landing at the base on the ground. Time to burn this down, he said igniting the tall tree the nest was on, watching his burn. Seato looked around not having many options. Wish I equipped this guy with a lickalizer, he thought to himself as it was crash or burn and neither was appealing. Van Blut watched as the tree went down, but was curious to why they hadn't left yet. He flew to the crash of the nest and didn't see Seato. Erzalt. Seato said hitting Van Blut. Van Blut took out his spectral viewer. How'd you survive the crash? He asked looking for Seato. I jumped as the tree fell, landed on a tree and lost some energy, but I'm alright. Seato said, his voice bouncing from multiple directions. Controlled crash. Naruto thought having to give him credit as he took the risk of a crash that'd do less damage to stay in the game. It was an impressive move. With Tom and Sarah. So, who's your money on? Tom asked Sarah curiously. Too tough to tell. Sarah said to him as she had to admit Naruto was creative with his battle gear, using the torweg as a flamethrower and for offensive capabilities was smart and unique, plus leaving Peyton in a spot where he had to choose between falling and burning was smart as well. I think Naruto has a shot if he goes on the offensive. Tom said as so far Naruto had just been playing it smart. With Naruto. Ash Torrent. Van Blut said firing at Seato. Smoke surge, he said loudly. Great, I can't see. Seato thought as all this smoke clouded his vision, he turned invisible to hide. I can still see you. Van Blut said loudly hidden in the smoke. What's the matter my pedian, can't fight in the shadows, he said as he laughed. Pebble storm, he said firing at Seato from all sides circling around him. Time to end this. Cyclone slam, he said seeing Seato soon become code. Beta drome. Wow man, I was surprised by that, I can't tell you. Peyton said giving Naruto full props as he changed back. Yeah, sorry if I got mean there, Van Blut is seriously messed up. Naruto said to him as he felt his personality overtake his for a moment, wanting to play with his prey. It's fine bro, a lot of creatures are like that, trust me, you should try ones with next to no intelligence, they are real hard to manage. Peyton said to him as it was common for some creatures' personality traits or stats to get the best of a player. Skartalas might be a better idea to use. Naruto thought as he hoped Peyton chose him for the next battle. Peyton moved Malvadine and spun the location randomizer. The next location was the Riverlands. Forward 1 space. Malvadine attacks Skartalas, he said as both hit the icons. Riverlands. I deal with water attacks, meaning I can heal every time I make contact. Skartalas thought to himself, having an advantage here since he gave himself the lickalizer. Malvadine didn't use water attacks. I am doing my duties Skartalas, a loud voice said booming in his head. I gotta get this under control. Naruto thought to himself as he didn't have a spectral viewer and only music that would reveal Malvadine, and there was no telling how long it would last. Skartalas moved behind a waterfall hoping to catch Malvadine off guard. Nice idea bro, but sadly I got here first. Malvadine said blasting Skartalas with water. Let me guess, lickalizer. Skartalas said to him, it was a common piece of battle gear so he soon be shocked. Yep, guess we're both fighting water with water. Malvadine said as they both fired at each other. Gonna have to try harder than that to beat me. Skartalas said as he activated his music. With Sarah. What music is that? Tom asked seeing Naruto gain energy while Peyton lost the same amount. The Song of Symmetry, it's a useful music to turn the tables, you gain 10 energy while your opponent loses 10 energy, it basically gives you the upper hand while dealing your enemy a bad one. Sarah said, having used this music to save her own skin once before in a match with Naruto. Skartalas ran to Malvadine and threw him into the rushing rapids and jumped in after him. He fired a power pulse at him and continued to do so till he was code. Beta Drome. That was crazy, man. Peyton said, wanting to try that himself in the future. Most elemental acts fail in rushing waters. Naruto said, remembering when some ninja from the hidden rain trapped him underwater and he used his clones to make rasengans to make a giant whirlpool, fire, wind, and earth lose momentum and or the water cancels it out, even if you use water attacks they're severely weakened, he said to him. Man, we gotta battle more often. Peyton said, as this guy was incredible. Naruto spun the randomizer again and this time the location was Kiru City. Looking forward to it. Naruto said, choosing Skartalas and Byakuya. Kiru City. What is this guy's problem? Naruto thought, as he was currently in Maxer's castle and Skartalas was truly a pain to control here, he was angry and wanted to turn this place into ruins, blasting everything to pieces. Nice to meet you, my name is Rasnus, a memory came to him. I remember that place, that's the Overworld Embassy. Naruto thought, as it was a common battleground in Mount Pillar, he had seen many chaotic battles there, but the memory left and soon came another. Queen Alexia, the Overworld is our enemy, we shouldn't make peace with them, we should conquer them. Skartalas said to the queen. Skartalas, the Overworld, and us are on neutral terms for a reason. We share many of the same resources and we are under constant attack by the Mypedians. We maintain neutral relations as it is better than having another enemy, and should we ever decide peace, it will give us more room at the bargaining table. Alexia said to him. So this guy has a problem with the Overworld? Naruto thought in confusion, might be my only chance to get info, there was something from the last match too, he thought, remembering a voice. You want me to end diplomatic relations with the Overworld, have you lost your mind? A spider-like creature said to Skartalas. We possess the means to have the Overworld under our thumb, we can hoard the water supply through the riverlands, only Draktyl watches over it, Princess Assel. Skartalas said to the Princess of the Danians. To what end? There is no benefit to an all-out war with enemies we do not need to make. Assel said to Skartalas, Skartalas, we lost many hive brothers to pointless battles and pointless disputes, I do not intend to start something that isn't needed, she said to him sympathetically. Naruto understood Skartalas a little better now, what he was feeling wasn't just anger, it was mourning. Naruto saw more flashes of memories, it was hard to tell them apart but they were all surrounded by anger. I will do what is best for the tribe, even if it means betraying it. If Van Blut keeps his end of our deal, not only will the Overworld be gone, but the Mypedians as well. Skartalas said, looking in a mirror, looking like he was trying to rationalize this. I am sorry, Assel, you would have been a fine queen, but your sacrifice will be for the good of the hive, he said to himself, looking at himself in shame, grabbing a scroll. This was before he left to meet Van Blut. Naruto thought, as it now made sense, Skartalas put a hit on Assel and was going to frame the Overworld, and with an Overlord embassy, they may attack the Ambassador Rasnus, or Skartalas may try to pin it on him. I gotta end this match, he said, going to the top of the castle in the open. Skartalas was on the ledge of the castle. Come on Peyton, let's do this, you haven't coded me once, he said, hoping to get his attention. Never say never, my man. Byakuya said, making himself known, blasting at Skartalas with fire attacks. Skartalas charged forward as he got hit with a lavalanche. Can't say winning is ever easy, he thought, grabbing hold of Byakuya in a bear hug, then leaned over the side. Beta Drome. A sacrificial move? Peyton asked, wondering why he picked that. Bold, my man, bold, he said to him. Thanks, hey, I gotta make a small trip, I'll catch up with you later. You can get my info from Tom and Sarah. Naruto said as he left. Underworld City. So you can get me a meeting, but not get me past the guards? Naruto asked, hearing. Chaya likes to make things interesting for his guests. Hearing said as he ate some Draktyl scales, these taste fresh, he said in excitement as older scales were rougher and leathery. I made a deal with Dractyl so Kaz and I can get them more easily. Naruto said as he made a deal with the giant bird that they'd clean his old scales out. He apparently liked that they were gone as they were disgusting even to him. Great, so how you gonna sneak in? Hearing asked as he was an informant to Chire. He collected information through hearing as the creature was often overlooked and Chire wanted to see what Naruto was made of. Naruto looked at Chire's castle and got an idea. 5 minutes later. At least this looks somewhat normal. Naruto thought climbing the side wall of Chire's castle, he looked like he was climbing like any normal person or creature, but in truth he was focusing his chakra to latch onto the surfaces through the tips of his fingers and toes, to at least seem normal. Hearing was on Naruto's back holding on tightly. From what he had seen from humans they were very physically capable, but Naruto was proving that thought very wrong. What window is the throne room on? Naruto asked Hearing, wondering if they were close. Hearing needed a moment to confirm his bearings, never been outside the castle in this particular fashion. That one, he said, really wanting to be inside. Naruto nodded, jumping onto the balcony, and the moment his feet hit the ground he dodged a blast of fire aimed at his chest. He took out some kunai and threw them forward in the direction of where the blast came from. Above us. Hearing said, seeing Ejido's DMN. Naruto said, jumping upward and dodging a lavalanche aimed at him courtesy of Ejido's. I at least have ninja wire, he thought to himself, tying it to a pair of shuriken and threw them at Ejido's sides. You missed. Ejido said before he felt himself bound. Is this how Chire normally meets people? Naruto asked Hearing, who smiled nervously. And don't even bother trying fire at me. He set his hand on a windmill shuriken in his pouch as he looked at Takinom. She threw the first attack when he landed. You got some skill for a human. Takinom said, hearing Ejido struggling above her. He managed to nick me, she thought as her shoulder was now bleeding. Listen, I came to talk to Chire. Is he here or not? Naruto said, very willing to jump off this castle. Loud footsteps were his answer, and soon the large bulky creature made his presence known. You wanted to speak to me? Chire asked as they all went inside after Naruto freed Ejido's. Few minutes later. So Van Blood is working with the Danians and Mypedians. Chire said, taking in the information Naruto had just given him. This was not something I was aware of, he thought to himself as this information completely slipped by his notice. Naruto was silent, not having mentioned what Skartalas was getting from Van Blood, as he felt Chire would allow it given it might start a war between Danians and Overworlders. I can sneak inside Gojo's tower, see what else he might be planning, he offered, as he didn't like war, as in all honesty he thought Van Blood was a threat to whatever small peace there was. You? Takinom asked in disbelief. I broke in here and got you too, didn't I? Without a scratch, might I add. Naruto said to confidently, seeing Ejido's growl, but Naruto sent him his own glare. You're making them mad. Hearing said quietly to him. Ha! Chire said, letting out a small chuckle, this kid has a spine, I wonder if he can pull it off, he thought to himself as Naruto got past his guards till he made it to the throne room to be attacked by his advisors. That was farther than most have reached. Fine, but Takinom is going with you, he said to him, as Takinom wasn't a fool. She recognized the boy's skill the moment he dodged her attack, and not only that but reacted and fought back. He looked at the weapons in his wall, they were in deeper than a human should be capable of. 1 hour later, Gojo's tower. So how do you plan on entering? Takinom asked, wondering how he planned on entering the tower he'd never been to before. Naruto had to give this some thought as the pathway to Gojo's tower was well guarded. But air travel was not as much. Do you know which is Van Blood's quarters? He asked her, seeing her scoff. That kind of question isn't one you should ask a lady. Takinom said, as for a woman to answer that question had a lot of implications. Would it be easier if I told you I was gonna blow it up? Naruto said, seeing her face brighten at the suggestion. I've heard it's one of the top floors with a balcony. Takinom said to him, wondering if he was honestly going to climb that. He did climb into Chire's castle, she thought, having to give him some credit. 20 minutes later. He actually made it. Takinom thought, wondering how this human was so fast. Let's see if you are as good as you claim to be, she said, flying to the tower. With Naruto. So this is Van Blood's room. Naruto said, stopping as he saw a scythe. He scanned it and soon saw what it was, Van Blood's sickle. He saw how it raised a creature's courage and lowered others. He scanned over the Gojo's tower. Scan he had for here being inside the castle was better than the outside. Naruto soon left the room and was in the hallways. He jumped up to the ceiling hearing marching, and he then saw an icy blue underworld woman leading Van Blood's soldiers. The intruder is here, find him. Scythia said, ordering the troops. I was seen, I must be rustier than I thought. Naruto thought to himself. He jumped down and scanned Scythia. I only have a music spot left, he thought to himself as he ran when Scythia saw him. Come back here and face punishment, intruder. Scythia said, hot on his tail. Sorry, you're not my type. Naruto said jokingly as he dashed, putting chakra in his feet to move faster. Naruto soon made it to the dining room, where he ran into a one-eyed yellow gargoyle. He didn't give him time to react and punched him in the eye and ran. Rustoxic. Takinom said as she blindsided him. Few hours later. Naruto woke up in a jail cell. Great, I got captured, he thought. Feeling like total CRP as he tasted metal in his mouth and his pride was wounded from being caught. Takinom, but why am I still alive? He thought, wondering what the play was. He thankfully still had his scanner, having placed a seal on his person to store it in order to not get robbed or pocketed when unconscious. Greetings, human. Van Blood said, dropping from the ceiling. I have come to have a talk with you, he said, not at all hiding his conniving nature. Chaya has taken an interest in you and I'd like to know why, he said to him, not hiding the fact he would hurt Naruto to get his answers. Chaya has corresponded with Koppon about him, the boy has a secret. Takinom said to him, coming out of the shadows. Naruto gave her a look and then back to Van Blood. What is this secret, boy? Chaya rarely wastes his time on something not of value or of use. Van Blood asked him. Better play it smart. Naruto thought to himself, I know secrets to music, he said, seeing Van Blood's interest peak. Give me a music and I'll show you, he said to him, seeing Van Blood reach into his sash and pull one out. Be as dumb as you look, he thought to himself, using all the chakra control he could muster to not let any, even the excess, leave his body. He took the music and stopped his control and poured it into the music, and soon the music shined so brightly there was barely any shadow in the dungeon. Van Blood saw stars in his eyes seeing his music glow in Naruto's palm. He took it and looked at it closely. Chaya certainly has a good eye. You will be treated as a guest in my dungeon, boy. An ability such as this truly separates you from your species. But tell me, how are you able to do this? He asked him, as he had met humans and none of them were able to do this. He wondered what separated him from the rest. Is he human? He thought, as Naruto had whisker marks on his face. It was an animalistic trait, and while some creatures had a form similar to humans. He has not told Koppon, Van Blood. Takinom said to him. So Chaya wouldn't know either. Van Blood said in contemplation. Naruto was risking a lot. Koppon knew of his ability and that was merely an accident. Showing Van Blood was a risk, but he needed to do it. If his hunch was right, okay, the truth is. He said, motioning for Van Blood to come closer. Boom, he said to him. Boom. What do you mean, boo dash? Van Blood was saying angrily till Naruto's cell exploded. Naruto dashed forward, his cell door having been sent off its hinges. Time to set off the others, he said to himself as he made a hand sign, and soon multiple explosions followed after. You, what did you do? Van Blood said demandingly. I rigged a bunch of explosives as I ran around. Naruto said, as that was a half-truth. He planted them outside and inside. Later, he said, dashing off. Guards. Van Blood said as he flew after Naruto. Takinom behind him. Naruto made it to the throne room and saw a nearby window. Well, I've done worse, he thought to himself, waiting for Van Blood to appear. Later, Von Sucker, he said, dashing out the window off into the deep cloudy chasm around his castle. Van Blood saw Naruto jump through the glass window deep into the chasm. He landed back his throne room. We may not be seeing him again. Takinom said, holding up Naruto's scanner before crushing it. Van Blood smirked in satisfaction as he had to have jumped to his death. 1 hour later. So he's dead. Chire said as they lost an advantage, but it still changed nothing. Yes, but not before blowing up most of Gojo's tower and blowing up Van Blut's face. Takinom said as Chire laughed at that. A human worth my respect. Chire said as anyone who did that to Van Blut deserved it and a medal. You're forgetting I also stole his keys. Naruto said on the balcony, spinning the keys on his finger by the ring. They were all shocked to see him alive. How I destroyed your scanner. Takinom said in pure shock. You destroyed a replica. Naruto said as he knew he'd have to play the prisoner or be captured, so he made fakes as a precaution. So false plant, he asked Takinom. Nice double interrogation and loyalty move, he said as that was the plan from the get-go. He guessed Chire knew Takinom put him in a position where he would have to tell the truth or at the very least as much as he could to stay alive. You knew? Takinom asked curiously, wondering what gave her away. You were in a position to attack Van Blut if you thought I was too dangerous to be left in his hands, and when you mentioned Kopond you had to have known I was making his music stronger, but neglected to tell Van Blut that. You wanted to see if I'd lie or tell the truth about how I was doing this. Naruto said to her. Chire looked at him critically. That was too good of an analysis of the situation. It made little sense to him. The way this boy acted, responded, and even analyzed his surroundings was akin to his more top-tier soldiers. Speak up, kid, what exactly are you? He asked him, asked being a strong word as Chire made demands. Human, for the most part. Naruto said, knowing if he didn't play this right chaotic players were screwed. And the other part? Chire said, raising a brow. Naruto bent down and did a jump flip, now standing upside down on the ceiling. Ajitos and Takinom were shocked. I thought I was seeing things. Takinom thought as she had planted a crystal well hidden in Van Blut's castle for Chire. It was outside his bed chambers and she had seen Naruto on the roof for a moment. She thought she was seeing things. So what are you, some kinda human creature hybrid? Chire asked as it'd make sense to a degree. No, I'm human. Naruto said, explaining he was the only one of his kind to have come here by accident. So you come from a world of humans with abilities like creatures. Chire said, finding that to be interesting. Your power must be like energy, or they're the same thing but with a different name, he said, unsure because Naruto's power still had a unique reaction on Mujix. That much was obvious. Your power will remain a secret, if only to keep certain enemies from using you, he said as the boy was a game changer. It was better to have him be an ally rather than an enemy. Naruto nodded before going to the balcony and jumping. Takinom, ever curious, saw him fall and soon land on his feet, not breaking anything. Thoughts? Chire asked Ajitos and Takinom. He's smart, cunning, and if we had to guess, strong while also possibly hiding other abilities. Takinom said as the others nodded. He's young though, it's possible he never received training to tap into all the abilities his people are capable of. Ajitos said, offering his 2 cents, but another thing at this chakra, it makes Mujix stronger, but what about other things like battle gear, he asked them. It's not like we can strap him to one, he's a living battery with a mind of its own. Chire said as while there were Mujix that drained energy, battle gear was another story and Naruto had control of his power, so it would be pointless. He came to warn you, so that possibly makes you an ally to him. Takinom said as he never met Chire and instinctively disliked Van Blut, so that put more in his favor. Chire took that into consideration, but knew it made things harder. I need to know how strong he is. If he's capable of fighting a creature in combat, I could have him join my forces, he said as his army wouldn't respect a weakling. You forget, my lord, he said, he's a ninja, a mercenary. Ajitos said to him as Naruto explained what ninja were. Right, unaffiliated. Chire said as they were rare, villages that chose not to be part of tribes were common in the overworld, often getting caught between battles of the tribes. Some produced a decent warrior or two who joined the other tribes or stayed neutral, working for themselves. How will the other tribes react? Ajitos asked them. The Danians might try to turn him into one of them, if he is as like a creature as we think it might be possible. Takinom said to them as that was a little disturbing. Maxer won't do much, he's not the type. Mom Mark on the other hand may try to steal the kid's BLD. Chire said as Maxer's little lab rat often made creatures, some ending up here having a large hate for their creator and his abuse. Takinom and Ajitos shivered as they had heard what the scientist did. It almost made Ulmer seem normal. That leaves the Mypedians. Ajitos said to them. They may wish to learn his secrets, any information about his skills, and abilities to further improve their own combat abilities. Takinom said as Naruto was able to move very fluidly and at a quick pace. If the Mypedians learned that, they'd be a bigger nuisance than ever. Chaotic. Whoa man, that's an impressive piece of gear, it'd be perfect for Fear Valley. Peyton said to Naruto seeing Van Blut's sickle. He's right, pretty big decrease with a creature with enough courage. Sarah said to as the sickle was a good game changer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got the only scan. Naruto said to them as he didn't see anyone when he put the scan in, he found no other player had it. You should see what you can do with it, some battle gear weapons do more than physical attacks. Tom said to him. You got some great offensive battle gear, but what about other stuff like vehicles and the real crazy stuff? Peyton asked him. What crazy stuff? Naruto asked him. Peyton pulled out his scanner and showed him a scan of a black sphere. It's called a flux bauble, it changes the location you're in, but it's totally random, he said to him. Where do I get one? Naruto asked curiously. It's Mypedian battle gear, so Mypedian territory, but I hear Ulmer has one for research. Peyton said to him. I'll try another time, my body is sore all over. Naruto said as his joints were still sore from Rastoxic. Naruto's cabin. Used all my paper bombs on Gojo's tower. Naruto thought to himself as it was difficult to find the necessary supplies for sealing and make them all by hand, and I need to get new kunai. He thought as those would be just as hard as he left them in Chire's wall. I need to collect some raw materials and see if chakra metal even exists here, he thought to himself, and would also need somewhere to burn said metal into kunai. Naruto weighed his options as it was either the underworld or the overworld. He knew the underworld had a trash heap and it might be a good place to find metals, but he was curious to the overworld. They also might have ink there that's compatible with chakra. Naruto thought as one of the few things Kit could do was get him clothing and other necessities for him given he was young and still growing. The Codemasters saw no point in denying this request. He was rather specific with Krellin as he asked for warm and cold weather clothing given all the terrains. Kiru City. Naruto was walking around Kiru and had to admit it was kinda nice. Underworld City was gritty and had character, but this was nice as well. Wonder if there is anything to scan, he thought as he heard Tom mention the Music Academy. It wasn't guarded, but the Muges didn't like anyone eyeing their music or interrupting their studies. The arsenal was hard to get into, but creatures that resided in the overworld were much easier to get here. Who are you? A growl asked Naruto hidden from his sight. Naruto looked around before looking above and jumped on the walls seeing a large biped black cat creature. You're Atacat, right? He asked curiously. Atacat saw this boy was human, but his scent seemed different somehow. He got the scent of something familiar he couldn't place. Why are you here, chaotic player? He asked as the humans were a mixed bag. One could often tell their allegiance or what they claimed by their scanners. He saw no tribe color, only black, and wondered what that meant. I'm here for ink. Naruto said as that was the gist of it. Atacat raised a brow. Ink, that's it? He asked wondering if this child was some kinda MSTR liar as he picked up no trace of a lie. He decided to take Naruto to the one person to have that in bulk. Kiru Armory 3 hours later. I hate you so much. Naruto said to Atacat as he was listening to Bodil run his trap for nearly 3 hours about the type of ink the overworld had developed. Atacat chuckled at his pain. So what's with the whiskers, you trying to be like me? He asked once seeing a kid with a Mypedian hat, helmet or something on during a mission. I was born with these cat. Naruto said to him flatly. Atacat was now curious, never seeing a human with that kind of character trait as they all seemed similar in some ways barring the obvious differences. This was the first time he saw a human with animal traits. As Bodil prattled on, Naruto had been pushing his chakra through each ink vial. Some reactions were better than nothing. When Bodil finished, Naruto saw what type of ink worked best and decided to get that one, but the problem was he didn't have the overworld currency, so he had to work a deal with Bodil. a month of work in the arsenal. Naruto knew he was playing him as he knew the currency and value of each tribe, and he knew Bodal was ripping him off greatly as the ink wasn't much. How about a bet, Bodal? He asked him. You want a wager? What could I possibly hope to gain? Bodal asked him, curious to his reasoning. Easy, you win, I'll double the work time for you, but if I win, the work time is cut in half and I get double my order. Naruto said, seeing him contemplate his offer. He only agreed to work here as it'd give him a chance to get more battle gear scans. And what is this wager? Bodal said, not being an idiot and blindly accepting. Easy, arm wrestling between me and him. Naruto said, pointing at Atacat, shocking both Atacat and Bodal. Deal. Bodal said, seeing Naruto have no chance. Naruto and Atacat got a crate and set up their arms. No hard feelings if I break your arm. Atacat said to him as he was surprised Naruto hadn't ran, as humans didn't have the same strength as creatures like him. So long as there isn't any if I break yours. Naruto said, making Atacat laugh. Begin. Bodal said, expecting to hear a slam, but saw Naruto resisting Atacat. DMN, those muscles really aren't for show. Naruto thought, as while he didn't train much, he kept his body in peak physical condition, having made sure to be pushing his physical limits. He was adding chakra in as well to bridge the gap. I'm almost as strong as Tenguth and Intress. How is this kid so strong? Atacat thought, pushing his weight in. Before long, Atacat found himself on the floor. Thanks for the ink. Naruto said to Bodal as he then passed out. 1 hour later. You became a man today, cub. Atacat said as he gave Naruto a mug of booze. The black cat creature was impressed someone so young beat him, well, not that surprised as it has happened before. I wasn't already. Naruto asked, drinking it. He had been given a drink by his sensei before, as he told him and the rest of Team 7 they should experience getting drunk at least once. He had also drank with Tsunade because she wanted to curse at him for being the guy who made her take the job. Booze her was a little rougher, but he still held his own. You ever spill BLD? Atacat asked, getting a nod. Naruto telling him he was 13. Okay, how about saving a royal? He asked, as protecting royalty was a huge job, one he held alongside Tenguth as they were in charge of military operations. He got a nod for that as well. Wield a weapon? He asked. Wielding a weapon was a sign of adulthood in pretty much every tribe. Naruto stabbed one of his remaining kunai on the bar table. Kothika kid. No wonder you're strong, he said, as bearing SEC. Naruto was more man than most of the people here. They got strange looks from other creatures given Naruto was human. Why is there a human at my pub? An annoyed voice said, looking at Naruto. Leave him alone, Victor. Kid just proved to be a man today, so I'm buying him a drink. Atacat said, as Victor didn't like humans, he saw them as pests. Him a man, please, you've been drinking too much if this qualifies as a man. Victor said, looking at Naruto. What, not gonna defend yourself, Tiny? He said, poking at him roughly with his claws, cutting him slightly, not seeing a reaction. Watch it. Atacat said in a low growl, smelling the BLD. And what are you gonna do, defend your pet human? Victor said, tauntingly, pouring his drink over Naruto's head. Many creatures began muttering to themselves seeing this go on. You done? Naruto asked Victor blankly. Me and my friend here are trying to drink in peace, he said, his tone not changing. Well, Runt, I can't drink in peace with you here, so why don't you run along like the rest of your kind? Victor said to him, wanting him to leave. Two things: how much trouble can you or I get into if I send his butt flying? Naruto asked Atacat. None happens here a lot. What was the second thing? Atacat asked him. Are you two ignoring me? Victor was saying till Naruto's mug hit him in the face. Whoops, dropped my booze. Naruto said smartly. You little dash. Victor was saying till Naruto tackled him and then punched him right in his snout. Booze and a show. Atacat said, tripping a nearby creature who tried to intervene. 2 hours later. Naruto was 5 mugs in as he got into an all-out brawl, his clone battles having been less tough. Atacat was laughing like a wild man seeing Victor on the floor with a black eye along with some other creatures who wanted a piece of Naruto. "Kid, this has been amazing," Atacat said as he cheered and looked at the now wobbly child. "How many fingers am I holding up?" he said, not holding any, seeing the child looked barely able to stand. Naruto tried counting the non-existent hand and took another swig. "Atacat," a angry female voice said coming into the bar. She was a female red-headed tiger woman. "We've talked about this, you can't beat fellow overworlders like this," she said as he laughed. "What in all of Harem is funny?" she asked him. "I didn't fight, my new friend here did," Atacat said, pointing to Naruto. "Naruto, this is Intress Naruto," he said, introducing them. Intress was going to ask how much he had to drink before seeing the child's injuries, wondering if Atacat was telling the truth. Naruto looked at Intress and then leaned close to Atacat. "Who is the old cat lady?" he asked, trying to whisper, but it was heard by both. Atacat did a spit take and laughed onto the floor while Intress looked livid at being called old. "I am not old," she said, rolling his poor analysis abilities to too many drinks and probably a concussion. "But you have white hair everywhere and Atacat doesn't, that makes you old," Naruto said, slurring a bit. Atacat was holding his sides in laughter. "Oh, thank the Kothika, this is the greatest day of my life," he said as he giggled at Intress. Intress chose not to get angry as he was clearly drunk and clearly wounded, and he was hanging with Atacat, who was a bad influence. She remembered a similar situation with Ivana a while back. Her student had drunkenly challenged Maxer to a fight and passed out after she made her challenge. They were interrupted when they heard Victor and the others stirring. They looked up to see Intress and a drunk Naruto. "You PP want a round 2, I'm ready," Naruto said, roaring loudly. "I think I just found me protege," Atacat said, as this kid was perfect. "No," Intress said, as one Atacat was enough, 2 and all of Harem would be in danger. Victor and the other creatures Naruto fought weighed their options and decided to leave. "That's right, run, next time I won't be so gentle in handing you your asses," Naruto said before falling over. Atacat began to clap in applause as Intress shot him a glare. "Help me carry him, he needs to see a healer," Intress said to him. Atacat downed his drink and then helped her. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author pyrohelixdrago on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.